All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:30 exactly. Thank you to all who have come both online and in the room. And if the person who says iPhone 23 is a board member, could you please identify yourself? All right, I guess they're not. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I have two amendments. One is that I'm going to the build work group along with a finance presentation from Mary to the director's spot. So they will give their report then. And I'm going to add a second resignation that we'll acknowledge tonight as well. Is there any public comment? Online? Anyone in the room for public comment? Hi, Heather. All right, hearing none, we'll go into the reports, starting with Sherry.
So this, during mid-June to currently, our focus here at the central office is looking at our hiring needs and filling our positions. And in some cases, reallocating resources. The majority of our positions are filled. We're excited about the candidates that we've moved forward. As has been the issue in the past, key positions that we're still struggling to fill are in special education and elementary Spanish. At the beginning or mid-July, we did have our leadership retreat locally. We focused on building capacity for our instructional leaders, identifying areas of need for support and logistical planning for the start of the school year. We addressed strategic plan goals for next school year. We will present those at the September board meeting. We've scheduled coaching support for math and literacy, reviewed tools for teacher growth, and participated in elementary emergency operations exercises. Tom Emery led those, was well-used time, and considered the impact of our current Vermont legislation on future school budgets. And then lastly, we have two new members of our team, Andy Smith, who's taking over Director of Technology and Innovation. He's been quick to learn the data collection and state reporting, such an exciting topic, of which is not my favorite, but he's doing a great job. Also getting to meet our tech members of our team and spending time in our buildings. And Mary Henry, who is our new Director of Finance and Operations. She and I went on a magical mystery tour Friday morning and hit every elementary school within 4 hours and instructed her on some of the best general stores in the region and what they offer. So it welcomed them both, and it's exciting to have some new energy and ideas and thinking in this office.
All right, thank you. I'll invite Seth to get started with a brief overview of where the build working group is, and Mary will be doing the presentation in concert with our building facility needs.
Okay, great. Mary, do you want to come up here?
Sure.
I don't know. Can she sit with you?
I hope so.
I'll start. So there's good news and bad. There's good news, so good news. Right? The yin and the yang. The good news is that we've accomplished about 2/3 of what we set out that was needed to build a new school. And, you know, it's really not a question of if the school is going to happen, but how soon. We passed an $84 million, number one, we passed an $84 million bond, a $112 million bond that funds 75% of the project with two contingencies. We dealt with the first contingency by passing legislation to decouple the per pupil spending with capital debt, which eliminates the penalty. And then on the second contingency, we helped establish a new state law that defines a new state school construction program, which says we qualify for 30%. So that's the good news. And, we've really spent a lot of time looking at that law, and we strongly believe that the Agency of Education has a legal authority to grant us final approval now. That would be contingent upon rulemaking and future legislative appropriations. And we've argued that this would advance the governor's agendas, his agenda for affordability and regional consolidation. And that's really because every month comes at a price. We have temporary repairs. And Mary's gonna detail more about this. Temporary repairs, emergency spending, higher construction costs, and obviously continued risk for students and teachers. So that's the good news. And everybody here knows that we're really well suited to give some early wins on consolidation because we're already serving 28 communities. We can take more students. And we have the first CESA in the state, so we can get a lot of wins around shared services. The bad news is now is the AOE says we have to wait 3 years for our final approval, right? They said we have to write the rules to implement the program, and we're going to need until March 2028 to do that. And that means that we wouldn't be able to apply for a grant until later in March 28. And at the brightest of timelines, we would get that grant by the end of 2028 and be able to begin construction in 2029. The point that we have tried to stress with AOE is that no matter what happens in this rulemaking process over the next 2 years, it won't change two fundamental facts. One is that this is, according to the state of Vermont, the most urgent facility need. Number two, the project was thoroughly vetted through a process that state officials and legislators have repeatedly described as a statewide model. Everybody knows here that we received 2 pre-approvals in 2024 and 2025. Everybody here knows that the school facilities manager for AOE described the Mountain View's decade-long process as a model process, and that assessment was really shared by legislators on both sides of the aisle over the last 2 sessions. So this debate was captured. Gina sent around a clip that she helped engineer on PBS this weekend. It was really interesting to see other folks, 7 days, DPR talking about this, and it took 10 minutes to get into it. So I would encourage you all to watch that. But the other bad news is, so waiting, what does that mean? Let's put a cost to that waiting. And Mary, maybe we asked Mary to take a look at, what are we looking at in terms of exposure if we have to wait for 3 years? And what?
We're just having some technical issues.
I'm getting there. Give me
Yeah, it's not, Zoom is being weird lately, and so mine's working fine, but I know this is the same issue Shayna had the other night. So she's trying to send it to me. Yep, it's great. It's okay. No, this is the same thing that happened.
Anybody have any questions on anything I said? Was there any new information there?
Did we, are we still pursuing the legal avenue of like forcing their hand? Because I know we have a
Yes.
conversation about that.
I think that there's the fastest 2 paths are: one, administrative approval by AOE or the governor to say, hey, this does advance affordability. We'll basically do our request. The second fastest path would be to pass legislation to amend the emergency, some of the bills from last year to make this go
Do I
through.
have?
You know,
You want me to?
Okay, done.
Okay.
and then there's no legal path.
I can do it.
I mean,
You
it's
got
just
it?
like wait.
There's
It's just
Okay, great. Tell me
what you're going to see is that it's just a cost to taxpayers statewide. Waiting just means that the state of Vermont is going to be on the hook for more money to us, which is going to have to come from every community. It's not really, if state law says we get 30% and that number keeps going up, that's to the detriment of all Vermonters.
we're ready to
Yes,
go.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, I put this together for you guys to talk about the rebuild costs and the facility improvements and a little bit of the differences, just some key points for it. First, the rebuild cost. The initial project was 100 million back in 24 when you guys tried to get it passed. It did finally pass in 26 for 112 million with your 25% to come from other places other than the original bond. Project costs increased by 12 million just over those 2 years from the initial 2024 to 26. The AOE rulemaking process could extend this out even further on when you guys would be able to get approved to 2029. If that happens and we go out to 36 months, you're looking at 21 million on top of the already 12 million that it went up in 2024. So it's roughly 6% annually. I want to look where I get that 6% from is building costs have gone up. In 26, it was like 6.2 to 7% just nationally on those increases. There's an increase in tariffs, energy spikes, labor shortages, demand, and all those things are drivers that are causing these rates to go up. 6%, I think, is low. It could be up towards of 8 to 10%. Just in that 1 year or 2 years, you had 12% increase. So the longer we wait, the more it costs. And with this building in the shape it's in, it's got to be done. So the estimated project for 2029 would be 133,390,000. Again, total estimated increase would be 33,390,000. Again, overall percentage increase from 24 is 33%. Those costs, again, are not going to go down. Into the next part. Okay, this comes from the report that was done in 2023. They came here between January 3rd and January 6th to inspect our building. They inspected all the buildings in the state, so there's reports for every single building. And as Seth made the comment that we were at the bottom of the list for one of the worst buildings. It concluded that the building has reached the end of its useful life. And what they used was what they call a facility condition index, as defined by the Bureau of Veritas, I want to say. One of the major goals of that is to assess the condition of the building, to calculate that out using their index, which provides a theoretical objective indication of a building's overall condition. By definition, the FCI is defined as the ratio of the cost of current needs divided by the current replacement value of the facility. So this is their table that they use, the index table, that they value based on all the things they find in that report. We're at 31.6%. So it's reached the end of its useful or serviceable life. Renewal is now necessary, according to the state of Vermont in 2023 in their report. So these are some of the statements that they made in their report. The foundation and parts of the structure appear to be in poor condition. There is a serious step cracking at the joint supports in the gymnasium and foundation problems at the perimeter. A professional engineer must be retained to analyze the existing condition, provide recommendations, and if necessary, estimate the scope, costs of any required repairs. And I know, Joe, we've done that. And in the gymnasium, we've made some renovations to that as well for snow load. So we know if it's too much. And again, those are all repairs we've done on a building that in the end, we're not going to be able to use. So this is over the past 5 years, the district has probably put in approximately about 5 million in addressing immediate facility needs. This list here that we have in front of us for the capital improvement plan actually came out of that report. Part of it came out of that report from they did in January. You're looking at over 13 million in just renovations that need to be done. And some of these renovations actually will just get torn down, even the driveway repairs, because the driveway is going to have to be dug up again when the new building goes in for your geothermal heat pump system to have a place for drainage. So even that is something that isn't going to be able to be kept, even if we do it. So the next thing is, if for some reason, we have to do some of these repairs, and we have to have the kids out of the building because of it. We would have to set up a temporary facility for the kids. This came from company, but again, I want to make sure everybody knows that these are just temporary numbers from May of 2024. They're not actual numbers. Because again, we didn't put it out to bid. We didn't ask. We just asked for a rough estimate of what they thought it would cost. As you can see, the construction of it, that would include site work, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, basically setting up a house. You put everything into it. The drainage, the whole 9 yards has to be done for this to happen. And then you're going to remove it. And all that money is gone, 2.4 million. So potential outcomes. The AOE allows the project to move forward as the district has asked. The other option is that the district is delayed 3 to 4 years minimum, causing an additional 13 million in patchwork repairs or emergency spending. While the purpose of the 13 million is in facility improvements addresses immediate needs, it does not change the fact that this building has reached the end of its useful life. And under Vermont's new school construction funding formula, the financial impact is shared statewide. I want people to know that. This isn't just a Woodstock issue. This is over the whole state. So the more it goes up, it doesn't just impact us, it impacts all the other people in the state.
I just want to add, I think just to clarify or put a fine point on this, I think the potential outcome is that three things. One, construction cost is going to go up $21 million, right? So that's an additional, and then we may have up to $10 to $13 million in repairs. Let's just say $13 million in repairs. And then if we are forced into an emergency situation, that's another $2.5 million.
Yes, it is.
And it doesn't matter, a part of the building is unusable or the whole building, we have to set up the same infrastructure. So we still have to vote water.
That's exposure to potentially $35 million by waiting for 3 years.
Yes.
Which would, by the law, would be covered under the state grant, the 30%.
I think it's important to note too that we would not be able to fit the entire student population in those modular classrooms. The football field that came down to that, we just need more room than we could have.
So I think what we're going to do is, I think the point here is we want to go in eyes wide open about where we're at, and we also want to have our advocacy communicate the facts on the ground and what's happening here, so that the folks in Montpelier can help make the best decision for the state.
Have we already submitted our request to the governor?
We submitted a request to the agency, to the secretary. So I think, and she said no. You have to wait for 3 years. We have to do the rulemaking, and I think we'd love to appeal that to the governor. I don't know if we'll be successful doing that. If that's not successful, I think we we're going to be talking with our legislators about, what kind of legislative solution can we look at? Because I think there'll be support for this. If the legislature realized there's $35 million that they could avoid by advancing approval of the most vetted project in the state that they call the model process, that might be something they could say yes to.
Bob Green has his hand up.
Yeah, a question. It sounds like we've done everything in our power to attempt to convince them that we need to move forward, and they just said no. So, okay, we could either wait for 3 years and go from there. I heard, well, we got some support from the legislature. We could go there and see if we can drum up some support. But it sounds like what's being suggested is we keep on doing what we've been doing and hoping for the best. The question is, isn't this time for a lawsuit? Sue them. Sue the state. Sue the AOE.
That's not coming through here.
Yeah. I don't think, I think that, I'm not a lawyer, and I think we certainly should look at that option, but there's not a strong, we haven't come up with a suit yet.
There's not a law that they're violating.
Like, they're interpreting, basically, we're saying, you could give us a grant now and save us money, and they're saying, no, we don't believe we can. And we're not going to talk to you about it. And we don't think that's really thoughtful policy. And I think we want to see if we can, it feels like it is thoughtful policy. And if we can talk to enough people, maybe we can move the needle, is the short answer. And,
But we've included our attorney in
Yeah.
weekly meetings. At this point in time, she is not believing that we have a standing legally to pursue their AOE's interpretation of the law, both Act 70 and Act 73, is different than our interpretation. And the amount of time it would take to go into a court and clarify whose interpretation is correct, we would be 3 years down the.
And an additional cost, and the cure is through rulemaking, is what the judge would probably say. And
Yeah, I mean, I think the other challenge that we have here is that, like it or not, we're in a long-term relationship with the Agency on Education. And so just thinking about how to make sure that we're advocating for ourselves forcefully, but not in a way that alienates them further. And I think that balance is really important and really tough. And I will say this, like in my day job, this is what I do, is I help people negotiate this, like balancing with the regulator. So I just want to urge some caution on being too aggressive. Again, I think it makes sense to be assertive and, push for what you think is a logical interpretation and use the tools at your disposal, but just in a way that recognizes like they hold a lot of the cards. And so it doesn't really serve us to just aggravate everyone and make people feel like we're like the spoiled brats of Vermont.
If we have to wait and the cost goes up, do we have to take it back to the voters? Because now it's $133 million project instead of 112.
no, the rise in construction costs, which would be covered by the 30%, and we would work to do it to close any gaps that we had. We believe that the 30%. We need 20%. Because we raised 84 million and we got 6 million in pledges. There's going to be an increase in cost if we have to wait, but because we're entitled to 30%, that 30% should be able to absorb that. In other words, I'll give you the actual numbers.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like the article said that we would be borrowing 112.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be borrowing 112. Or maybe I don't understand how state funding works. I mean, are they just going to hand us the money, or are we going to borrow the money and then they're going to help us pay back the money? 30% of the money.
I thought Jim had always told us that they were going to pay back over time.
Yeah,
Their portion the state's giving us is going to be used over time to sort of repay the loan. So you might be right that we'd be borrowing more than one.
Yeah, I mean it's a consideration that we may have to open up. But the question is, it depends on when they give us the approval, right? So we haven't crossed that line yet. That's another reason to do it. It's like we have to keep watching that number, and we haven't. It's a really good point. We need to figure out when the cost rise.
Well, and it just adds that, that's the responsibility of this board. That's why, while we are trying really hard to partner with AOE, and Nan, thank you for that. We are trying to engage in conversations. They're saying we're misrepresenting. We're trying to be factually based, and we just clarified a story with Mountain Times. Here's what's in statute. Here's what we're referring to. And at the same time, our taxpayers, this is pressure not just on our taxpayers, but with the funding formula, that impact will be the entire state. They will set a rate that people will not be voting on. That's the funding formula, and we have to all work within that rate. So it's not just responsibility the board has and we have to our 8 towns, it's also to the other towns of Vermont. This has a serious impact. And when we talk about the legislative opportunity, there is a part of Act 70 that talks about emergency funding. And so that's the part we'd love for Montpelier to look at if the governor and other options aren't followed, to really look at, we're not the only school that is in a really emergency situation. And there needs to be a process that is adequately funded to address those situations. I think of North Country High School. There are other schools who are in very serious situations. We're number one in terms of worst case scenario. However, there's some other schools who are also experiencing this, who don't have the time to wait. And as was said on the VPR, we don't have a Macy's in Woodstock. We are really left to our own to figure this out. And we've, each time, Carrie, Seth, Gina have spoken with the state. What do we do? Help us out. What do we do when this building fails? Because we have 450 students and 100 employees who show up every day. What do we do? And we've
Nothing. There's no response to that. So, the thing that sets us apart from the rest of the state is we have a project that's ready to go. We own the land, we have the water, we have the sewer. We don't have to go find a site and start from scratch. Anyone who's in the same shape we are has to go out, and it'll take them at least 2 to 3 years to even get a viable project and a bond passed. We have a bond that's been passed. So that's been one of our arguments, is that we are in a unique situation. And, we've heard that, well, it's not equitable for us to give you a special deal, so to speak. Well, is it equitable for people to be working and learning in an environment like that? I would turn that equity right around and say it's not equitable. It hasn't been for a long time. It's not a new problem. So that's the thing.
There's one thing that the AOE said that I think we have to just really point out here very clearly, is they said in one of the responses something about, well, you decided to get 25% from external sources. And I think we didn't decide to do that. State law said there was a funding source for school construction that would fund 20% at the time, and that has been raised to 30%. It would have been negligent of this school board to ask for 100% of the funding from the residents who had already said no to a less expensive project. So I think I was upset about that response. I thought it was not accurate, because it would have been negligent for us to not pursue state resources, especially the way the tax funding formula works.
So have we done anything to reach out to these other school districts who are also in emergency situations, and maybe leverage all of our legislators to form some kind of crappy school caucus that can push this forward? And we're like, yeah, we'll support your project, we'll support our project. Thank you. And get this done.
We, as I speak with other superintendents, they're all pursuing their issues. We're getting a lot of attention because we are so far ahead of the path. I know other superintendents have testified about PCBs, Hartford, North Country, and there's lots of buildings that are suffering. But we're, as Carrie said, very unique in that we're ahead. We've got the project, and people are watching and seeing our path forward, and that we're trying to take the higher ground. And I think that by bringing the regional legislation together and say, how can we go back to F70 and really address emergency issues, is an opportunity for other legislators, because it really will happen in Montpelier more so than superintendents speaking to it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're really hoping, is to bring together a coalition of legislators who will bring this to attention.
Right.
The answer is we haven't done as much as we should. We're not aware of anybody who's in our same shoes that would be a coalition that's in our unique point. But if you want to help, we could use it.
Yeah, well, I think I keep hearing that we're in a unique position. But the problem with being in a unique position is that puts a target on us, with people saying that we are the privileged.
Yeah.
If we put this forward as being less unique, and that there are other people in this position, and that might be able to join together.
No, you're absolutely right.
So democracy works.
But I think the point that Mary made here about, like, there's 35 million that could be won by the rest of Vermont.
Yeah.
Due to the state law. That's the thing. Like, every year we wait, it's more cost to Vermonters.
That's a hypothetical. I realize that it's like a hypothetical. But I feel like it's easier to dismiss than like if we were reached out to other communities that have different legislatures than ours, to try to do.
What is the next step? I mean, receive that back from the agency of education, or what are the next things that
I think we're trying to appeal to the governor. So if anybody has anybody close that listens to the governor, let us know. Number one. Number two is we want to build support with our legislators and look at what we can bring to bear in the next session to address this through an amendment. Those are the two possibilities. You know, I do think, for whatever it's worth, and I'm not a school of, I think I can say this as a resident. It's good politics to go after affordability and the signature thing that you run on, which is consolidation. And we're a twofer, you know. I think I'd love to have the governor down here for a groundbreaking in the fall if he wants to before the November election. You know, that feels like good policy because it's within the scope of what their legal authority is right now.
And I just wanted to point out briefly, though, that we have one more tactic that we'll continue to use, and that is trying our best to keep the public informed about it. Okay. And that is drawing some attention. And if you think that's not effective, then just dial back about 15 months ago, maybe a little bit less than that, when we were sitting here with a suggestion that the governor was going to slice the state up into 5 big districts. And we quietly said no. And Sherry went up with a gal by the name of Joe Graham, who runs the Vermont Learning Collaborative. And lo and behold, we flipped the regional districting task force, flipped them. They were out there looking at maps, and by December, thanks to the pound, keep the word out, the redistricting task force insisted on a law that included voluntary mergers instead. The governor threatened to veto it, but in the end, he did not. He went along. Now, there isn't a whole lot of support building for this spending formula, the caps that Sherry, there's challenges all over to that. And it's possible that Scott won't get his way on that either. So what we're looking at right now is an attempt by the state, and I think we should say it and talk to our legislators about it and everybody else's legislators. This is an attempt, as Pete Hirschfeld from Vermont PBS said, is an attempt to take control from the voters in the communities and put it in the state, even though we're paying his salary, their salary. This is the voice of the people being squished so that he can try and consolidate schools another way. We've had some successes following the procedures that we've followed so far, and I think we should include those in the continued tactics going forward.
Bob?
Yeah, I'm liking that idea. If carrying a big stick isn't the name of the game, guilting them into doing the right thing may be. It's out of my wheelhouse, but imagine what would happen if a publication that many Vermonters read, I don't know what it would be, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, sent a reporter up here. It's almost fall time. They'd love to come up here, all expenses paid trip to see the leaves or whatever, and shine a spotlight on this whole issue. But I don't know how you reach the reporters, but call someone and say, hey, there's a thing going on here that the governor's doing and the AOE's doing. We think it would be a good story.
Yep.
especially considering our testing scores. I mean, we're a really good school with a really bad building.
That's right, well said. Yep.
Well, I think that 10 minutes of the PBS news program is dedicated to our situation is a really good indication that the efforts with communications really making a difference.
And by the way, Bob, that's a good point. I mean, at a certain point, the pressure inside a story gets big enough that you can actually extend it into different regions. And, the Times and the Journal, they all have New England editions. So it's a good thought. Yep.
I don't know how we get a hold of them, but
Well,
I mean,
do.
maybe even some television sources. This is a story that even Fox News would probably glom onto, micromanaging local education by the governor, or who knows what. But a few phone calls might find someone who wants to come up to Vermont and do a story.
But I would like to echo what Anne was saying earlier, is there's a way to tell this story that will not alienate the people that we need the approval of. I mean, I understand that the tactic of putting pressure and using guilt, but I think we got to phrase it as here's a great opportunity for the people to make this decision, and so that they can come out smiling, saying, yes, of course, we love this. We always have.
Well, it's a bit of a catch because I think it's completely right not to alienate them, but then, it doesn't necessarily make a great story that others are worried about.
Well, our interactions with the AOE have been respectful. The first meeting was a very respectful meeting. Our communications have been very respectful. And it was shocking to us that it came back, both letters with the tone that you just think you're special and you want this. That was not part of it at all. It was always about the students, the staff, the need, the years of waiting, and the fact that we finally got a budget passed with a bond. And that we asked them to honor the pre-approval that they've granted twice to us in 24 and 25. And it's true. And nowhere in their new law does it say we repeal all prior approvals, because there was only one anyway, ours. So, when we brought that up, they said, oh, no, it's defunct. Well, where does it say that? Oh, it's inferred. It's a new law. So, I think they're upset because they know that we're not going away. I think they'd like us to, she said, well, you're gonna have to wait 3 years, and well, what are we going to do when the building fails? Nothing. There was no response. And that's question's been asked at least 3 times. So, that's the problem, is we're not getting an answer to that, or funding, emergency funds. It's capped at 300,000. 300,000 gets us 2 trailers. So, that is the problem, is that we have a significant problem. I don't think they really see it as a serious emergency. So that's where we're at. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much on your first month of work.
I know, I sounded nervous because I won.
Great job.
Thank you.
So now we have our student report.
Since it's summer, I don't have much to say, which makes it everyone's lucky day. The main thing that I've been really enjoying is finding people further exploring their interest in work. So just moving around the state, I found Woodstock students that participate in the craft program, working with state and national parks, Woodstock athletes lifeguarding or playing soccer with the kids in their summer camps, Woodstock artists creating and marketing businesses, selling what they create, Woodstock actors, counseling theater camp, and so much more. So I think the passion Woodstock cultivates through its incredible classes, D3 projects, and extracurriculars are very special, and it would be nice if we also had a both.
Yes.
Thank you, Lila.
Thank you, Lila.
All right, we do have 2 resignations. The first resignation comes from Joe Bragoli, who is resigning as of, I believe, September 11th. And I just want to say, Joe, that I understand all the reasons why people retire. And so I don't begrudge you it, but you will be so much missed. And you've done so many things for our building since you came on board and took over the director job. And I can't say enough about you as far as, you know, what you've done for our schools, for our staff, for, you know, promoting the elevation of the custodial staff and the maintenance staff. I think you will be very difficult to replace. So thank you so much.
But I want to boo and cheer at the same time.
Many of you may not know that at Joe's first month was when we opened the Pomfret campus and realized how embedded we were with mold. And that was within weeks of Joe starting. So that he has lasted as long as he has is pretty remarkable. And again, it's a gift to work with him every day, no matter how hard things are and all the different codes he has on his phone, which mean different things, but they're all hysterical. His sense of humor, his joy for life, everything you could want in a director of facilities. And he created the position. He's been our first director and helped us realize so much in terms of our facilities. Every single building has benefited as a result of Joe being our director of facilities.
I'd invite
Do we,
any Browns folks to say something if they'd like.
I'd like
do
to
we
say,
have to,
sorry, Bob, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if we had to vote to accept these reservations.
Are you going to say no?
Correct.
As the chair of the board for Buildings and Grounds, this is very sad news. I'm very upset. You've had challenge after challenge that you have brought nothing but creativity and a good sense of humor and a positive outlook on that we have always found very refreshing in all of our meetings. So, well, I'm sad to see you go. I am excited for you in your next chapter too.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. We'll approve the two resignations together. The second resignation, sadly, is that John Williams has decided he needs to step down for family considerations. And his resignation is effective tomorrow. And I just, you know, have worked very closely with John, and he and I think have been a good balance. He talks me off bridges and I talk him off bridges at times. And, you know, together John does a lot behind the scenes with, you know, conversations and the different work he's done on committees. And he also will be very challenging for us to replace. And so as part of that, I've asked John to just give a quick overview of the superintendent's search. So we have just a little bit to know about that, just kicking off this one.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, everyone. It's been a tremendous honor, I guess, over these last 3 years to serve and work alongside all of you. As far as the superintendent search, where things stand now is that actually, Carrie, is there the contract to approve for the board to vote on tonight?
I don't have it with me, but we do need to do that approval, yes, so that I can.
Okay. So we're going to contract with the VSBA to conduct the search for a new superintendent for us. And what that will involve is they'll have a retired superintendent from Vermont who will help us, a committee that is being formed and is almost ready to establish the criteria that we'll be looking for. Um, and that committee will contain teachers, board members, community members, principals. So it will kick off in the next few weeks and establish that criteria so that the job description can be put out there and we can start getting applications in, and then that committee will screen the candidates and narrow that pool down to 2 or 3 candidates that then we would bring in for interviews, um, and have the community meet them and eventually select one to send to the board for approval. But so that's where we are in the process. That should be wrapped up by late fall of this year. So I'll be turning kind of all that stuff back over to Carrie, and she can find someone else to run that process. But that's where things stand now, and it's going well.
Thank you, John. Um, so we will need to replace one Woodstock school board representative. If you know folks who might be interested, have them contact me, or you can contact me with their name. The names then go to the select board, and the select board will interview those candidates and either choose to give us a recommendation or ask us to discuss the folks as well and make our own decision. I would really like to have that done in the September meeting, and since it's a bit later in September, we have a little bit of extra time. But I will put some things out through the various ways we get information out, including Parent Square, the new Front Porch Forum that is in Woodstock, as well as the other forum that's been formed. But as I said, sometimes word of mouth is the best way to find an interested person. I think the main thing that they need to understand is that it's not just one meeting a month. For most of us, this committee meetings and work that goes on as well behind the scenes and can sometimes be even more time consuming than attending this meeting. And we do need people to step up and take on some of those roles because we need some other folks on some of the committees. So I guess we have to take a vote to accept the resignations of both candidates here, both guys. So is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the resignation of Joe Rivera and John.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, thank you. All right. All those in favor, either put up your Zoom hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right,
Abstain.
the ayes definitely have it.
Oh, I heard an abstain.
Abstain?
Yeah, I'm an abstain.
Okay, Flav is abstaining. Okay. All right, well, that deed is done, and it's a sad one indeed, but we all understand. The next thing is the presentation of the board work plan. We're going to just take a quick tour through that. There is a board work plan for the year, and that is how we derive our agendas, is the various things that you see in the agenda often come from the planned work time, and that's how we try to balance agendas as well. So in August, you can see the various things that we do. There's a couple things underneath. Most of them are standing presentations that we have all year long. And so it's planned out. And so sometimes some of you will say, could we have a report on this? And so usually Janet and Sherry and I will look at the agenda and say, well, it looks like that could happen on this month because that month happens to be, for example, budget time. Budget time is for those with our most lengthy meetings, as you know. So there is a plan. And if you ever wanted to have the access to see that plan, we can get that to you. I don't think it's on the website. No, it's an internal document.
What?
But these are the various things that we do year after year after year. And then along with that, we will add to it the special reports, the special presentations, and those kinds of things as they get put on. Any questions on that? All right, thank you. We do need to appoint a clerk tonight. Know that the clerk would like to be a temporary clerk, having been our clerk for many, many years, but because we are going to be discussing a bond resolution, we have to have a clerk to be able to get that out and get it signed. So we are going to vote to appoint Raina Bishop as interim clerk for August to sign the bond vote certificate of registration due to district clerk vacancy. There was ads out for it earlier, but nobody stepped forward. Again, some of you may know people in your communities that would like to be helpful. It doesn't take a lot.
No, it's mostly around or school district and
Okay. So if there are some folks, maybe some retired educators as well that might be interested, I would really appreciate if you would talk it up. I know it's been advertised recently and it will get out again, but it's not a big job, but it's a really important job because it's necessary in the state of Vermont to have it done this way. So is there a motion to appoint Raina Bishop as an interim clerk for August?
I make a motion to appoint Raina Bishop as interim clerk
Thank you, Seth.
forever.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. All in favor of appointing Raina Bishop as interim clerk for August, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, this time Mary is going to come back and discuss with us the adoption of the bond resolution. And I don't know, Joe, you have any things to say about it. It's the sewer project. While she's coming here, I want to say that I don't know that we've had a meeting with all 18 official board members in a long time. So thank you all for showing up. Much appreciated.
Okay, so I have the document here for the bond and I have listed all the places where you need to sign. I wrote board, and then we have the clerk, and the board chair has to sign in a different spot, and I've got a treasurer's signature as well, which you will get through DocuSign. So anybody that's online, you're going to get the document through DocuSign to sign electronically. I need this done this evening, first thing tomorrow morning at the latest, because we've got to overnight these documents to the bond bank so that we can get this processed. We're unfortunately on a major timeline right now, so I would ask that you sign this evening. Whoever's here, get it back to me. I will send out the other one after you vote to adopt this bond.
Any questions on the bond? Okay, then all in favor of the adoption of the bond resolution, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right.
I'm going to abstain.
Josh is abstaining.
So if you could sign this before you leave.
Do you want us to pass it around?
Yes, you can pass that around. Like I said, I labeled it where the board needs to go. Oh, yes, that's fine. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. And those online, be looking for your documents. I already used DocuSign. It was simple. Sure, some of you use it as well. Okay, Sherry's going to share a letter here in person. It's linked in the book as well. That is an interesting rescission from the AOE on a matter that was being, which was happening. So I'll let Sherry.
Yes, so Shayna and I received information just prior to the budget vote in March that the high school, middle school have been identified for lack of progress of special education students. Shayna and I met with the Agency of Education around their concerns and our identification of targeted. Shayna and I pushed back saying this didn't make any sense. We had been notified by the Agency of Education previously for being one of the top districts in terms of identification and then moving students off an IEP. However, at that point in time, they said, no, they were correct. We were not, our students who were identified as receiving supports were not making sufficient progress. Since that time, and they even put Woodstock Union High School on their website and 3 other districts for not supporting special education students. Within a week, that was taken down because they realized that their algorithm was incorrect and they had been improperly identifying districts for targeted and support since 2017. So we've met with, Shana has done amazing work with them to the point of one point there was one student that was off and she did hours of prep. And at the end of it, AOE was asking for Shana's recommendations on how to fix their problems. So I get lots of different letters, but I felt it was really important for the board because when we get those designations, we take it very seriously. Shana and I were very involved in those meetings. We pushed back on the data because it didn't support the data that we had. And then within a week, it was pulled down. So this is official notification. While you can notice that they've taken us down, there is no admission of why there was a problem, just that they're trying to get better. So I would hope, we ask our students all the time, if you create a problem, please help us understand it. But here's the Agency of Education, not to be, but it's when you are made the poster child of not doing it right. And then when it's taken back.
So they accuse us of what?
They accused us, the middle school and high school, that those students who were designated as receiving special education services, they were making insufficient progress as compared to their non-special ed peers. And Shana and I looked at our data, did not concur, shared that with the Agency of Education. At that meeting, they said, oh no, we're right. And then within a week that was taken down. And they identified that since 2017, their algorithm has been incorrect. And in fact, I was on a meeting, I offered to be part of it.
Just kidding.
So, and now they had a 10-page report just came out admitting to all the things they've been doing wrong since 2017.
Question. So on the PBS piece that Gina, this was the next story was, it was from the Fed. And it was because we were reporting wrong to the Fed, or how was the Fed coming down? How was the Department of Education coming down on our state, right? And they were going to pull funds if we didn't pull them up. That's the same story.
It's similar. This is the story that I'm discussing is that it's not just special education that districts were being identified for targeted support. There were other marginalized populations who were not being sufficiently supported. So other districts were called out for different reasons for targeted support. We were special ed, and there are many things that have, so there are federal statute, there were, Vermont special education was audited. Vermont has not had a director of special education for many years, had one for about 6 months, she left, but now there's been a reorganization. The title of director of special ed for the state of Vermont is no longer a title. There are lots of issues that need to be addressed. And this is just one example of where Mountain View's had some concerns. But we're back in the graces of AOE.
Seems like this is a very weird letter.
Yeah, it's a weird letter. Like I had to ask.
We're all, at one point, did all districts or all schools lose this ATSI? Because it says specifically ours is nullified.
So every superintendent who had been identified as needing targeted support and improvement, who the data does no longer support, has received a letter such as this. So there were a number of districts, including our own, I think it was 15, that were wrongly identified as targeted support. And then even more so if going back, but this is the most recent one, is the one that Shana and I really pushed hard against.
So bottom line, are we losing federal funds?
No.
Going to our budget?
No.
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 So this is a nothing burger?
Well, it's just, it really pained us because when we were on their website as targeted supports for special education, when Shana, her team, our board support those resources, provide funding, that, and then we offered counter data, it was dismissed. And so here we are, July, and now we're receiving a letter, even though they did admit it, they did send me an email, but it's taken till now to get an official notification.
The other subtext is
I'm trying to be nice to Montpelier. Sometimes they can be wrong.
Well, I was including all of these letters and I kept saying, what are you talking about? And they would just come back with a nothing answer. I had no idea. So I'm talking to Shayna, then I missed a meeting that I was supposed to be at. And then Sherry, and we're all like going, what's really wrong? Couldn't figure it out. They wouldn't be clear about it. You have to come to this meeting so we can.
But do they report to the, that's what I was asking, do they report to the federal and that's why the federal is all?
Well, I mean, it's all about money, right? So the feds provide, IDEA grants, which there are certain assurances, just I have to, and Sheena have to sign off insurances. We are doing all these things to make us in compliance with federal statute. Vermont, at the state level, they're the state LEA, has to provide assurances. Yes, we're doing all these things. So the Vermont has been signing off on this, and the feds came in and did an audit, and they are not meeting the statute. And for many different reasons, lack of progress, there's a lot of different pieces going on. It would be helpful if they had a director of special education. They have not had someone in that position for a very long time.
I saw an ad go out for that job. It's really.
And what is criminal is the salary for that position is less than most special ed directors and superintendents positions. So it's not filled, it's underfunded, and it's going to be because it's not been filled for so long, there are so much work to get done, including being in compliance with the feds. So not a lot of people lining up for that job.
So it's your retirement job then?
Yeah.
Rhetorical evening.
Blow it up. Anyway, thank you for your attention and your confidence in us that we worked on it, and this is not something we take lightly.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Shayna. I know you did a lot of work on this. And we will move into our committee reports. Matt, you're up first with finance.
All right. I promise next time I'll put some slides together because I'm going to go over a lot of information that's, some of it was included in the board book, some of it was not. But I'm going to start with all the really, really good news. So, which is the shortest part of the conversation. When House Bill 949 passed into law, the governor signed it. The government decided to buy down the education fund with surplus funding, I think 103 million. And they had the letter that came out that on average, taxes would go up 7%, but because they're putting this money into the education fund, on average, they're going to go up about 3.5%. And when we go to the public for a vote on our budget, we're just using the property yield number that we have at that time. That does not account for this potential future government buy down. So just to give you a sense of what that means, we told Woodstock voters, your tax rate's going to go up about 2%. We told Reading that they're going to go up roughly 6%, Concord 14%, Plymouth 8%, Hamilton 16%. Does everyone remember all this when we went to the voters? Okay, so at that time, we approved a budget that was about 1.4 million into excess spending, but it was the only budget we all could support without further cuts. So the good news is when the government buys down the education fund with surplus spending, the rates at which tax rates will go up for fiscal 27 are actually a lot lower. I mean, significantly lower. So I'll just repeat, we told Woodstock, your tax rate's going up 3%. It's actually going down minus 3.9%. So people's taxes are actually going down. They get their taxes for fiscal 27. Reading's, I said, was going up almost 6%. Now it's going down 0.27%. Concord was 14. It's going down now. Concord was going up 7. 14, now it's just going up 7%, so it's cut in half. I can read through all of these, and these aren't the actual like final numbers, but these give you a rough idea of just what a big difference it made. And of course, nobody will know this. I mean, they approved our budget based on what we told them when we printed it in all the newspapers that your tax rates are going up by this amount, and now they're not. So we don't, unless we like make a story of it, we don't get any goodwill from the voters. It's like, we told you it's gonna go up, 2% or 6%, and now it's like,
When will this show up on tax bills?
They cannot. They got our tax bill, and what if it's only up like 3%, what you think?
No, I didn't compare mine to.
Oh, I
Jack.
but never know this happened because
I did.
you just see your tax bill, you see the dollars, you don't compare like the tax rate for fiscal 26, 27. So it really helped our voters, and I think it supported our decision as a board and Sherry's decision with the admin and the principals to put forward a budget that, kept in place a lot of the programs we think are so important and did go into excess spending. Okay. So that was the good news.
So would that be something you think should be put out?
I think it would be great, but at the same time, we have to give the bad news, which is that the same exact bill 949 passed into law also lowered our excess spending threshold. So when the excess spending threshold was calculated for fiscal 27, it was allowing for 118% increase over like average per pupil spending across the whole state. If you remember when it was in the legislature, there was who's the guy who was resigning?
Or Bondarch, and he's not retired.
Maybe it was Bondarch. I don't know. One of them was like, okay. He proposed something really draconian, like he was going to keep all budgets flat. And then he said he backed off of that, but and the governor also wanted this ratcheting down of the threshold. So to get to my point, it's no longer 118% over last year's average. It's now can only go up 115.5% for fiscal 28. So when we start our budgeting, which admin is already doing, and when it comes to this board to think about amount in excess, the new threshold will only allow for 115.5% increase. And then when they calculate the threshold amount, and remember that's expressed as a per pupil amount. So last year I think it was around 16,400 for LTW ATM. When that gets calculated, it also has to use an inflation factor. If you look at the board materials I supplied, they choose an inflation factor that's very conservative, and like Jim demonstrated in the worksheet he sent out that like consumer price index always goes up more than this particular inflation adjustment. So we get hammered by this really low inflation assumption. So with the ratcheting down of the threshold and the lower inflation number, the current estimate, assuming our number of pupils is exactly the same and all is equal, would give us an excess spending threshold number of $16,463. Which means we can spend $63 more per kid to stay to be at the new excess spending. But remember, we exceeded last year's threshold, and so the punchline is that if our budget were to increase without like a fine-tooth comb, but if you just looked across our budget and applied similar rates like we had last year, like 7% for healthcare, which was actually the best we've had in years, and then like 3 to 4% for labor, our budget's supposed to go about 1.3 million. And so what would happen if we did nothing is that the amount in the excess spending would be double what it was last year. So if we were about 1.4 million in excess spending, we'd now be roughly 2.8 or something like that, 0.7. The numbers aren't exact. If we wanted to solve for a budget that put us no more into excess spending than we were last year, we would basically have to keep our budget flat and not increase by the 1.33 million. And that puts us into a similar situation we were in 2 years ago when we were trying to cut roughly 10 to 12 full-time employees, FTEs, across the district. And that was very difficult for our communities. The administration tried to put forward various scenarios, and some were accepted, some were rejected. In the end, we rejected some of the cuts to the arts and to music programs and to language. And I absolutely think we made the right decision. But we could be in a similar situation this year, depending on what we ask of the administration. So what the finance committee voted on when we met back in June was that we want to at least see some scenarios where we're no further into excess spending than we were in fiscal 27. So we'd still be over this new number, 16,463, but the absolute dollar amount that we're over would be about the same if we were over in fiscal 27. But this is the scenario that could cut 10 to 12 FTEs. But we're asking, what does that look like? What could we cut to try to achieve that? And we know that would create some hard decisions and possibly some scenarios that we don't want to accept. But it's just a starting point. I think there are other scenarios. Sherry mentioned to me she was going to look at a concept where no FTEs are eliminated, but we reallocate a number of FTEs to fill sort of open positions and needs. So it's kind of like a freeze, I guess, to call it, and people's job title might change. So we're very early in the process, as you all know. We as a board, we don't vote on the budget until December, and sometimes it actually goes into January where our board approves the budget, and then it goes to voters in March. So it's only August right now, and we have some time. But that's the current situation, and I don't have a firm position on it, but obviously I love our school system and our curriculum and our teachers, and so it's hard to think that we would cut 10 to 12 FTEs. Questions?
If the budget was flat, the drivers were 7% for healthcare and 3 to 4% for labor, right?
Roughly, and then there's a lot of other categories that just get like a general inflation, like 3.5%.
And healthcare was 7% last year.
Last year, but in years past it was like between 12 and 14% per year.
So like on average for the last 5 years, it's been
100%, above 100% in 5 years.
Right. Yeah,
and that portion, the healthcare portion of our budget, it's like what
it's big dollars. Yeah, I mean,
Well, it's 85% of our budget is already staffed.
Right. A large portion. It's just interesting that is such a major cost driver, absent from the discussion of education.
So we have no control.
Good question. And we're trying to hem and haw for facility. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not a good position.
Yeah, and I would just add one more thing is that when we went through Act 46 and created a new merged district, we also put in place policies for campus configuration. And those policies are meant to protect the campuses that came into our district, like Barnard and Reading and Killington. And you can't solve this budget with just a simple we'll close one of those schools. The reason you can't solve this budget with that approach is that the policies we put in place take more than a year to close a campus. You have to demonstrate that certain thresholds weren't met, like a year in advance before you can actually take a vote. So
3 years, basically 3 years.
Is it 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of tied our hands And so it's gonna be looking across all of our campuses, across the whole district to try to find some of these savings.
Yeah, so can't we use some of the goodwill of a lower budget that to say, look, it might be a little higher next year, but it's really not because we actually learned this. Like if it's gonna go up 10% rather than 8%.
Yeah, and
3% last year.
And I think
As a messaging
and I'm just thinking about like, when's the right time to do that? Is it now or is it
no, I would
closer to
do it as
December?
you start to see what the projections are and say, you know, really, it's the average of the 2 years. It's not going up as much as it seems.
I definitely agree. We should try to take credit for the fact that tax rates went down, or in some cases not up as much as we're told, folks. And I think we have to accept that until there are like structural changes in our cost structure, like more students, all of the town joins our district, it's very difficult not to go into excess spending. Very, very. And we're not alone.
What's our target for students? Like to make a difference? You might have.
What do you mean?
Increase in students, like
How many would be?
like what kind of, how do we grow out? What's
I'm sure you can solve for that number. I haven't done it.
Yeah.
But it's powerful. Like each time you add more students, it has a multiplying effect. So it's like more than just a 1-for-1.
right? I'm just saying, like, if Montpelier addressed healthcare costs and let us grow, we might be able to work our way out of this budget challenge.
State's recommending 2,000 students.
For our district.
Yeah, ours was like 14 something, 14.7.
But the challenge is, so we dropped to 15.5 for this coming, the year after, it's yet another. And it's all to move us to a funding formula. And once we have a funding formula, we're not voting on our budgets anymore. We're just allocated a certain amount of money and we have to live within that money.
And that was the last point I was gonna get
Oh,
to,
sorry.
is our foundation formula. But before I go to that, I don't have a vote to put on the table tonight. I think what the finance committee asked for is like, are there scenarios where we could at least keep excess spending no more than we have for fiscal 27? So when that presentation comes to either our committee or to the full board, we're gonna have to pick and choose like what we would find acceptable versus what we would just absolutely not want to stop. Right? So something to think about. That's coming up. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough budgeting season. And then the foundation formula. So, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the last minute, either the governor or someone pulled it forward back into fiscal 29 that it takes effect. Is that right?
I don't think so.
No, it goes
It
into,
plays out over 5 years.
right. And each
It's
year
stepped
there's,
down.
right.
No, not the step down. What about the foundation formula itself?
I don't think they can put that in place until they step it down.
Well, they're working on, they're back to algorithms. There really are significant, the original funding formula that was in place, there are lots of questions. It was modeled after numbers back in 2025. There are many issues with the funding formula as written currently. And so it's back with Ways and Means and other parts of legislation to better define and model what actually will be the impact. So they have not, and Heather, if you know more than I do, they have not finalized the algorithm for the funding formula. That will still be negotiated in the spring. So we really don't know. And there are so many issues that are with the current funding formula that I don't know when they're going to have an answer about what the actual composition of the formula. Meanwhile, the threshold will go down each year.
Right. Okay, so threshold goes down each year, but we don't have to implement the actual foundation formula.
No, because at that point, we have no control. That's the end. They're stepping it down to get it lower. So
Which is supposed to incentivize
consolidation.
right. And as it drops down, the assumption is that the funding formula will provide a level field for a period of time. So the pressure is the threshold is going down. We will not be able to exceed, our towns will be sending more money to the ed fund, which is supposed to motivate us to approve and accept a funding formula. That's the tension there. So it's incentivizing a funding formula, get that worked out, agree upon a plan that will stabilize education funding in the state of Vermont until such time the threshold goes down every year.
So I propose that this time, instead of just trying to cut arts positions, we also cut athletics positions to piss off all the people so that they can then turn around to Montpelier if they like.
Good idea.
So just remember, sports is like a tiny, tiny portion of our total budget. I know maybe you're being facetious, but I mean, when we look at sports, it's not a super big number, and we pay our coaches practically nothing. We give the teams like nothing for jerseys. Like my middle school coach just used no money to buy jerseys. He'll buy you $1,000 every varsity. So the money we give to sports is actually so tiny.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I was just suggesting that's like a crazy awareness.
No, I agree.
Terrible way.
I mean, there's districts considering not having bus transportation. I mean, and again, Barry doesn't have a budget right now. I mean, already prior to this, there are districts who are struggling to have budget space. Heather went through quite a year. So
they're all passed now. But yeah, we have a community here that passes the budget. So there's a lot of strength in that to keep people, informed. We have a lot of support. So, doing things to keep people knowing what's going on is critical. Yeah.
What's reallocating staff instead of eliminating positions?
what it means is that, do you want to answer?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So we have not been able to fill all our positions. So we're looking at how we can move staff around to fill really important, critical positions like special education. Can we move part of the position here? And again, being a merged district, we have a lot more liberty than when we had individual districts. So looking, how can we use part of the position here, to make sure that we're covering all the legally required positions. Even, the Spanish, we've looked at a lot of different models with that. Can we share in different ways? So principals get around a table and we start thinking about all the different creative ways we can use our existing resources to meet all our needs. So that's been major part of this summer.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. Keep us informed. And the next one is policy committee.
Yep, thanks. So we have 4 policies to look at. The first one is school district building access policy. This is guidelines for rules for saying after hours, but access to school buildings for teachers and staff. And the emphasis is on periods where you're closed for vacations, holidays, and et cetera. And this was requested by the Buildings and Grounds and Facilities Department. So we are asking for a second read for the September meeting.
Is there a motion to have a second reading in September?
I make a motion to read in September, second read in September.
Thank you. Well, second, Gina, thank you. Are there any questions before we vote? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. All in favor of having the second reading of the school district building access policy read in September?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, thank you. We'll move that forward to September.
Next one is tax compliance policy. I'm not going to read even the title's wrong. It's like a 10-page policy. And my understanding is basically this is a detailed policy, how we handle compliance with tax exempt bonds when we get them. And I believe this was requested, and it came through Jim, and it was requested by our insurers. It's very complicated. I cannot claim that I understand all the text. I do have a question before we vote on it, though, which we asked last time, which is, they also issued a memo that we should have a resolution that we are accepting it, and we don't do that for any other policy. Like saying, basically, there's a whole resolution, and we have not gotten an answer to that. My own opinion is I don't know why we would do that since we are going to pass it.
Will they not accept the minutes? Typically, the minutes would be
That would-
evidence.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fine. I think minutes that we're doing, from my point of view, it's fine, but I don't know why we are aiming towards passing it, so sounds good to me.
Is this a first reading, Elliot?
This would be, yes, I mean, this is the first reading now, asking for a second reading.
Correct to approval? We're gonna argue it.
I want me to.
We're not changing anything. It's, right?
We are not.
Corinne?
Hi, I'm curious if the finance director has any if Mary's still here,
She is.
comments on this, and if it seems reasonable, if this is like something that, these sort of procedures, because it looks like the finance director would be coming up with the procedures for the post issuance compliance. Just if there's any thoughts from her about this potential policy.
Yeah, she hasn't had time to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do it for a second. So that,
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think, she should be able to give some input on that at some point.
Good luck. You'll 5 slides later.
I had ChatGPT look at it. I still couldn't understand that. So, okay.
Someone wrote it. All right, so is there a motion to move it to a second reading in September?
Sure.
Gina? Seconded. Is there second? Thank you, Heather. All in favor of moving this to a second reading in September, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, thank you.
Okay, now we're in a second reading of our Pets on Campus policy. And we did present that last time. In between them, we actually had some public comments before and after. So we actually brought it back to the policy committee, and the decision was that we would just ask buildings and grounds and facilities to monitor the situation. And actually, we did heard back from Joe, and basically saying that even just the fact that this is a coming policy, things have improved. So the sense is that, am I right? Yeah, that it's improved just for the idea that it's doing, and that they would keep an eye on it. So I mean, I think we're okay, and I guess I'm asking to move this for adoption at the September meeting.
Wait, so I'm confused. Are we not? Is it?
So we normally have.
We're still doing the policy.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I felt like you made it seem like there were changes made to it.
No, the policy, we just discussed it again.
Okay.
And we just said, we're leaving it alone, but we would just like to ask for feedback. And we got feedback from Joe that, even the fact that we were, this was an impending policy, it seemed to get the message out that things were,
right.
And things were improved.
But we're still moving forward with approving a reading tonight of the policy.
No, for adoption next
Next
month.
I mean, this was standard is that we do 3.
Yeah, and so did we change the link based on feedback received?
We haven't changed anything.
Okay, I missed the June full board meeting. Can you tell me, is the basic policy to not allow pets on campus?
Yes.
Okay. I'll if we go into discussion, I can give you my reason.
Well, if you want to give me reasons for this discussion.
So my sense is that, the taxpayers own our buildings, our grounds, and they're often the ones who come and watch the sports and, bring a pet. And I have never personally in all the years, 20 years on these grounds, I live, 3/10 of a mile from the school. I run and walk on these grounds with I've never had a problem with dog feces, never even seen one. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I haven't personally come across it and, never had an incident with a pet on the grounds. And, yeah, I would hate to take that away from the public. So
Joe, do you want to respond to that?
Sure, over the years since I've been here, we've had multiple complaints from coaches, student athletes, grounds committee as well. I've had a couple interactions with people, and dogs, specifically our grounds guys, unleashed dogs. But most of the complaints have been from the athletes here. And it's not just here, it's playgrounds, Reading, we had some issues a few months ago. We had folks who specifically bring their dog to the playground area. So at the end of the day, it's a life safety issue, with dog waste. We've tried encouraging people to pick up after dogs, and some people did, but the majority of them did not. That's the problem that we're having. There's no good way to single out some of the people who are respectful of the property, and the majority of the folks are not. We had an encounter last week with a gentleman who got pretty upset when we explained to him that they weren't allowed any longer. He was one of the worst offenders, according to the grounds guys, because they saw him have a conversation.
I'm curious what some of the public comment was that you received, whether any of it was like really kind of changed your thinking. Or
I think we were one or two people that remember that just wrote some instances they wanted to access just partly was because of the road access, the way the road. The reason we brought it back is because we had one before it was discussed, and then we had another one after we had a meeting, so we decided we wanted to compare, and both of those comments were put into the public part of our thing.
I think the thing is most pet owners do pick up, but there's a lot of people with pets. And I know that what Sherry's told me is often it's during the snow season and the hockey folks bring their dogs because they're here for the whole day with their kids, and that they take the dogs out and they treat it like a dog park. And the dogs just run around and, generally they get along, but they poop. And they don't go out and pick it up. So, I mean, it is a problem. And I've seen it even in Woodstock Village, an increase in people letting their dogs do it on the sidewalk and walking away. I've watched it. And I don't get that. But it's a, sign of the times, I guess. Not my responsibility to pick up. I feel bad for them because there aren't very many places to walk your dog off leash in the town.
with respect to the leash situation, there are already leash laws in the town. So technically, if someone has their pet off leash, they'll break the law here. You don't have to have like rules on top of rules because it's already a town law. But that's separate from the feces issue.
All right, is there a motion to move it to final approval?
Final approval in September.
In September.
Again, I just want to stress that it's not just this game. It's all of our games. Reading, like I said, a month or two ago, we had some really issues. Kids actually falling in dogs.
I'll make a motion. To move this to a final reading.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
And any? Me too. Move it, Heather. Great. Also opposed. Any abstaining? All right, it has passed and due up for final approval in September.
Thank you. So the one that is up for third reading is the responsible computer network and internet use. This is an update of our policy that we already have. It's just a lot more detailed, has basically some legal grounding for it. And again, it's not has nothing to do with essentially with our other work that we're working on, which is technology and education. It really is talking about the existing use of internet and safe use of internet. So we've discussed it a few times, and we did put one thing in it that sort of refers to what we're working on, which is an appropriate use of internet that or of technology, which we are a working group working on. But so this is up for adoption at this point, being read 2 times prior.
Any questions before we move to adopt? All right, all those in favor of adopting the MVSU D3 policy, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, Josh is abstaining.
I'm also abstaining. Ryan Townsend, thank you.
Okay, Ryan. Then I believe it has passed. All right, thank you, Elliot. Building and Grounds Committee update.
No updates for this meeting.
Okay. Negotiations, Hiring and Retention Committee update. I will give that update. We are hoping to start negotiations with both the support staff and the teachers in the fall, in September. I do need at least 2 more people to join that working group or committee. We currently have essentially 1 person on that. So it would be great if 2 of you could say it can be intense, but it's not all year long. It should be wrapped up in the fall to winter, hopefully, unless we go into an impasse situation, which then involves other measures to get things settled. So if you are interested in being on that, would you please contact me? Otherwise, I don't know what we will do. We don't have a committee. So thank you for thinking about that. Working groups. Seth, you gave your report. Elliot, do you want to give a report on the?
Sure. So the Ed Tech working technically has met twice, I guess. And last time the first time was just organizational. We spent some time last, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, talking about our charge, and we were sort of taking it back and redefining it in terms of what the question we are going to be answering. So the question is, are we just looking at technology one-to-one, or are we looking at technology in general and for what grade? So this is going to be sort of a long-term project. We're really going to be looking at all kinds of aspects. We are starting, besides the charge, is looking at sort of the day in the life of what different student groups are using for technology. So whether they're using one-to-one or whether they're using the smart boards, that's how we're starting. So we're basically there to get a whole bunch of information and see how it impacts on our next meeting is going to be sometime in
25th, I think.
Oh, we should do that.
Tuesday after.
Right.
All right, thank you. Are there any other working groups that want to report? Okay, then it's time for us to approve the minutes from the June 15th meeting. Hopefully you've taken a quick look at it to see if there's anything not there, but I'd like to just have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Annie, is there a second? Mia, thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstains? Corinne is abstaining.
Yeah, point
I
of
just
order.
wasn't there.
Yeah, there should be some abstentions. You had 11 folks there.
I abstain. Oops. What was the June? What are you gonna do?
No, that was the regular meeting. That was the meeting.
I was, I abstain.
Okay, Brandon and Matt. Great. It is approved. Is there any public comment? It's the time when the public can speak. Anybody online, anybody here? All right, hearing no public comment. We do not need an executive session. We have a moment to reflect on and self-evaluate and implement any recommendations. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I like the 2-hour meetings.
Under 2 hours. The cap meetings is 2 hours. Just,
That should be a policy.
that should be policy.
Yeah.
And Paul Dote, who was board chair, was the policy.
It's not a bad idea.
Well, we do the best we can. It's up to us to not talk too much. We might be part of the problem. It's not usually public comment. Once in a while, it might. All right, well, we have reflected that timeliness is a good thing. And is there a motion to adjourn? Yes, move. Thank you, Heather. Who's seconding? Second. And seconding. All in favor of adjourning? Thank you. Anyone opposed to that?
And
Anyone abstaining?